The rosary for me is like a visible, a tangible expression of my faith. Every Hail Mary is like a hit on Satan's head. I heard a sweet voice, a lady's voice asking me. From then on, I can see my life taking a different turn altogether. My name is Maria Thomas and I live in Adelaide, south of Australia. Migrated here 8 years ago, and I'm basically from a small town called Hyderabad, a part of south of India. My journey with Mother Mary started when I was around 5-6 years old. I used to live with my grandparents who were 80 years old then, and my grandmother was part of the Legion of Mary in our parish. So the month of October is very special, if you know, to the Legion of Marys. And there was a program in our parish where the statue of Mother Mary used to go from house to house. And the good part of it was, for me as a 5-year or 6-year-old, was that we used to get snacks whenever we went into somebody's home. And we prayed the rosary, of course, and we sang all Marian hymns. When I was around 20 years old, I went to a retreat organized by the youth group. That was the first time that God gave me the grace for a good confession. So I went to this confession and I came back. I came to my room and I saw the picture of Mother Mary. It was part of a calendar. I looked at it and I just asked her, "Will you be my mother?" That was at a time when I didn't have a good relationship with my own family, my parents. So it meant a lot to me asking somebody else whom I didn't know to be my mother. But my mother, that is Mama Mary, I'm sure she took it very seriously, because from then on, I can see my life taking a different turn altogether. When I turned 21, the very next year, I went to a bigger retreat in Divine Retreat Center, which is part of another state. And somehow, though I couldn't afford it financially, I got the sponsor and I went there for the retreat. And as part of the retreat, there's a day dedicated for inner healing. In the morning, when they were talking about inner healing, I actually thought that I don't need any healing, because as part of my studies, we used to have retreats regularly. These were small ones, and every time there was an inner healing session, I used to cry, and I never understood why, but I used to cry a lot, and that's it. But nothing really came to my conscious mind as to why I was behaving or doing that way. Anyways, on that particular day, in the retreat, when the lady said that God is touching 2 people who did not receive love in their childhood, I started crying like a baby, and I was praying. So the volunteers had to take me to another room. And I still remember with my eyes closed and I was crying, and I had this deep anger against my dad, because I really didn't have a good relationship with my father till I was 21 years old. Like I said, I grew up with my grandparents. My parents were away. And so I had this deep anger against my father. And if I was awake at that moment, maybe I would have taken a knife and stabbed him, because that was the anger that I had. And I was crying there for maybe a couple of hours. And then I heard a sweet voice, a lady's voice asking me, "Do you want water, dear?" And I remember I shook my head like this because I didn't want any water. And a couple of minutes later, I felt like warm drops, pouring drops of water here, but it was warm. And I was thinking, what kind of people are these, When I said I don't want any water, they are like, pouring water here near my heart. And then I realized actually it was the blood of Christ. God that day, through his blood, healed that relationship with my father. A couple of minutes later, a voice in me told me that I have to forgive my father. I said, no way, I can never forgive my father. But then after a lot of struggle within me, I forgave my father. I said, Lord, for your sake, I forgive my father. Because I remember my dad used to come and visit me every summer holidays. And I was a small kid. One summer, I wouldn't leave him. I wouldn't leave him at all. But the taxi was waiting out and it was time for his, the train. So what he did was he gave me one slap on my face. So I think that was the anger, that was the hurt, that was a rejection moment for me. And that stayed within me. And that was affecting my relationship with my father. So even afterwards, when my parents came back and we were all living together, I could never speak to my father. And I used to long for a father's love, because I used to look at my friends and, the way they used to interact with their father. I could never do that. I could never do that with my dad before this retreat and before God healed me of that and he filled me with his love. So when I was going back, to my hometown after this retreat, in the train I said, Lord, I tried to restore this relationship with my dad all these years, but I couldn't. So I surrendered that relationship to you. And you won't believe, after that day, I could speak to my dad very freely. And, he is like one of my besties, my best friend. And I know for sure because that voice that I heard was none other than Mother Mary leading me to Jesus. Because she knew that I needed that healing at that point in my life.
Mary, I entrust myself totally to you. My body, my soul, my goods, and even the value of my good actions.
So in my life, my journey started with Mama Mary. And she led me to the Lord. And the Lord healed me of my relationship with my father. And from that time on, I was on fire. I literally used to ask the Lord, what do you want me to do today? Even on a journey or in a bus when I was traveling to my uni, I used to ask, who do you want me to talk to today? That kind of a relationship, I could have that with the grace of God. And then when you're on fire, prayer is everything to you, Prayer is no more boring. Prayer becomes a part of your life. And that is what it was with mine. So I used to get up in like around 3 o'clock in the night. It was as if someone used to wake me up, and I used to get up and I used to say the Divine Mercy. And I remember one night I was praying and this voice within me was like telling me, pick up your rosary, pick up your rosary. And I thought, okay, I kind of dismissed that voice. But that voice within was becoming very strong. It kept on telling, pick up your rosary, pick up your rosary. And I didn't know that I had my grandmother's rosary in my purse. I really didn't know. So I said, okay, let me go pick up the rosary. And I went and I opened the purse. I saw my grandmother's rosary because that was with small beads and made of steel. So I knew it was hers. It was very different. So from that night on, rosary was and is a part of my living, of my life. That's when, rosary became something more tangible, that I know I'm holding my Mother Mary's hand. I know that, Mama Mary is with me. My daughter was born and she used to fall sick very often. And that was my first experience being a mother myself. And I used to rely on my own mother for a lot of help. But then what happened was, one day I remember when I saw my mummy, my own mother, earthly mother, was trying to take care of my daughter. I told Mama Mary, Mama, if you take Ria, my daughter, and take her under your wings, I will start my walk to a shrine which is around close to 9 kilometers from where I used to live. So it's around, say, 2 hours journey. I said on, September 8th, which is the birthday of Mother Mary, I said, I will walk to your church. And I did. I remember my baby was small, so I just left her in my mommy's house and I started the walk. I was saying the rosary. It was around 6:30 in the morning because the mass was at around 8:30. So I planned that way that I go to the mass and then from there go to work. So I was on this road and I was telling the rosary and I was so busy, lost in my world. I was like praying the rosary and I was so conscious that I have to get there. Suddenly I see a woman walking across me and she kind of crossed the road from the other side and she came towards me. She had a small bundle, like a cloth bundle in her arm, and she told me in the language that we speak there is, I want to stay with you. Nenu neetone untanu. Like, I want to stay with you. And it didn't strike me because it didn't register. And she repeated that statement for 2-3 times. And then I started thinking, where will I take her? Because I'm going to the church. And I told her that, like this, I'm going to the church. After that, I'll be going to my work. So I can't take you with me. And then I thought, okay, what she can do is, I gave her the direction to my mummy's house, my mother's house. And I said, you go there. I'll come back in the evening. And then, I can take you home. And I went on my way. I finished and I forgot about it. 2 days later, suddenly this thought came to my mind and I asked my mummy, my mother, did any lady come home that evening? My mother said, no, nobody came home. And I also forgot about it. But the experience that stayed with me was this lady had a very sweet and, how do I describe it? She had a very gentle aura around her, She was not distressed, though she was coming to me as if she was homeless, as if she needed somebody, no place to stay. So when you're in that situation, you're actually, you're not at peace, you're not calm, you're worried, you can sense that. But I didn't sense that in that lady. She was very peaceful. She was very pleasant to talk to, though for not even a minute, but that pleasantness stayed with me.
Mary, I give you my heart. Mary, I give you my heart. Set it on fire with love for Jesus, with love for Jesus, with love for Jesus.
My second son was born. And my son was just 3 months old, and we had to find a place because there was nowhere for people to take care because I was working, my husband was working. So my aunt decided, she agreed to come and stay with us to take care of the baby. And because we were all in a joint family with my mother-in-law, father-in-law, with my brother-in-law and his family, my aunt couldn't really come and live with us as such. She is my mom's sister. So we had to find a house and I had to go back to work because we have only 3 months of maternity leave back home. So in a hurry, we just looked for a house which was good and it was financially also okay for us. It was within our budget. So we just moved all our goods that day and we got the house blessed. But that evening, Ria really fell sick. She was running high temperature and Ronan, started also kind of showing, signs of sickness. So we had to move and come and live with my own parents, with my mother, because my mother could take care. So that way my mother was there to take care of my kids and I used to go to work. But this continued for 3 weeks. The temperature wouldn't come down. And the doctor tried different medicine. He changed, antibiotics quite often, but nothing helped. My son started he was just 3 months old. He was having like a stomach bug, but that continued. So there were 2 kids who were sick at home, and I used to work in shift. So come back in the night, be with the kids, go early morning, like the afternoon next day to work. So this 3 weeks was as if we were cornered. We had no place to go. The doctors didn't have an answer. And I knew something was wrong. I knew it was not natural. So I remember going to the growth because the doctor said that this is it. I can't do anything. You have to admit her to a bigger hospital, which is like kilometers away from where we live. And we didn't know anyone there and how to go about there. So in that moment, I went to the grotto because we used to live very close to the church, just beside the church. So going to the grotto was a part of my routine before I got married. So I went to the grotto and I knelt down and I said, Mama, you have given me these kids. If it is the Lord's will, take them away. But I can't see them suffering. I really remember that night when I said this, and I handed over my kids to Mama Mary. And so that night we had to take Ria to the hospital. We had to admit her, but I couldn't go, so my mommy went. So I was with the small one, the younger one. And it was not a pleasant night, I can say. And so I was holding on to the Lord. I was reading the Bible. I was praying. I was saying the rosary. And so Ria was there, admitted for a week almost. And I was helpless. As a mother, I was helpless. But I knew my Mama Mary will not let go of me because I know that she will definitely do something about it. So then I get a phone call from a friend of mine, and he just asked me what's happening. He said, you know, Maria, I know somebody who's here at the moment. He had an experience of Jesus. He saw Jesus himself, and he is here in the town. So if you want, I can bring him over. I said, definitely. I was open. I wanted something to happen, some solution. And this was like an answer. I said, it's all right, Benny, just bring him. So he brought the man of God and he prayed and he told me, can you take me to the house where you were supposed to be, where you shifted, where you're supposed to be going for living on rent? I said, okay, come, we'll go there. So this friend of mine, this man of God, my husband Thomas, and a cousin of mine who's also very prayerful. So we went there and we sat down and we prayed. And then this brother asked me whether there were some things with designs on it, some markings on it. I showed him the places because the owner was a Hindu, and they had a lot of these pictures and a lot of these items. But then what I made sure was that I removed everything before even we landed there. I removed everything, got the house blessed. So whatever I could see was taken out of the house. He prayed, he saw all those things, and he said, no, there's something more. There is something more that is, and he was not able to figure out where it was. Then again, we started praying. And then he saw a place. This was like a big cabinet that was in the wall with one big, like from the top till the bottom, there was a big cabinet with, doors and small things that you could use to keep things there. He said, there's something there. And he tried to take the thing which was behind that cabinet. There was no access. We couldn't really get to that place. And so he asked me if we have something like a long thing. And because we did not even unpack, everything was there just packed. All the goods, everything. It was packed. We really didn't know what to do. So somehow we got hold of like a broomstick and we tried to bring things out. But the more he tried to bring that particular object out, it was pushing back. So he said, okay, there is something we need to do. What he did was he prayed, and we didn't have things. So on a bottle of water, he blessed it, and then he kind of started pouring it on the thing there, so that water should fall on that particular object. And then we prayed. And then when we were praying, the Lord revealed to him that he didn't tell us at that moment. The Lord revealed to him that if we had not done that, we would have lost Ria the next day at 4 o'clock in the morning. Because when we were praying, the Lord actually put his white garment on Ria and healed her. So we call her a miracle baby. And then we came home, and he said that Ria will be discharged from the hospital 12 o'clock the next day. And it happened. We couldn't understand, because the girl who was so sick, how can the doctors kind of say, okay, she's fine to go? But it happened that Ria was discharged. And another thing what the doctors actually found out was that she was diagnosed with blood poisoning, and I don't think there's any chance of people recovering when there's blood poisoning. But here she was healed, and my son also was healed of this particular. The next day when I went to the hospital, the doctor asked me, "What is this? Your kids are both diagnosed with something very strange, but they may not have an answer, or they may not know it, but I know it. It is the Lord who intervened in that particular phase, or in that particular incident that was supposed to happen." So that was another miracle that happened. Rosary for me is like a visible, a tangible expression of my faith. For me, it is like I'm holding my mama's hand and I'm looking at Jesus. It is like a compass. It shows me the direction. If you know the famous exorcist, Father Gabriel, in one of his testimonies, in one of his books, he writes that the person who was possessed, the spirit within that person, told Father Gabriel, every Hail Mary is like a knock, is like a hit on Satan's head. The spirit is telling, if only every Christian knew the power of rosary. So even the evil spirit know the power of rosary. So how much more we can fight the spiritual battle with this weapon, and also definitely the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. When I was praying one day about the Passion of Christ, what would have Jesus seen? What would have been his thought when he was looking at his mother, when he was looking at the disciple? He knew exactly that we need someone when he goes away, when he will die that day. He knew that we, his disciples, his followers, need someone to stand in his place till the Holy Spirit comes and there's power from above. We as his children definitely need the mother's intercession. We need the mother's protection. And that exactly God knew, that exactly Jesus knew, that we need somebody strong there.
My name is Michael O'Neill, and I'm the Miracle Hunter. We're talking today about the Marian devotions and the images that inspire those devotions from around the world. One of the famous devotions of the Virgin Mary is Our Lady of Charity del Cobre from Cuba. One of the most incredible stories is that of the tradition in Cuba, starting in the year 1600 or so, when three men, Rodrigo, Juan de Cuellos, and another Juan, a slave, were out on a boat trying to get some salt in order to preserve the meat for the town. When they were out on the water, it became a great storm, and they thought that they were going to die. The slave had a medal to Our Lady on it, and he began to pray for protection. The other two men joined him, and eventually the storm subsided and they were fine. When they looked into the distance, they saw an image. They thought it was a bird, and when it got closer and closer, they thought it was a statue of a girl. When they brought it aboard their boat, they found that it was dry despite being out in the water. And it was an image of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And on that statue, it said, "I am the Mother of Charity." And they brought that image back to the townspeople, who venerated it, and it became known as miraculous. Many cures and many other miracles are attributed to Our Lady of Charity del Cobre from Cuba in the early 1600s.
I love you.
My life is a miracle. Every child has a story of God's love to share. Shalom world, tune into God's love story.